Hello there. For some reason, we're not seeing the camera, so I'm not sure why. Let me see if we can get that good. Okay, today my camera is not working, so I'm not sure what the deal is. Um, Hello, SQL Dev DBA. I see you're on PolGab now, so that's really good. I'm not sure why this is being a bill. Uh, Hang on a second. I'll be right back. Well, for some reason, my camera is not working, so I am not sure if it's my OBS or not. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to just delete my object and put it back. It's a good idea. Camera source. It still doesn't like me. That's awesome. All right, well, let's see if, oh, so it works on another one, so I guess that's weird that it doesn't work on mine. It works in Teams, which is the odd part. So let me just delete the object completely. Create another one. Well, that could be too, but I didn't really change that. Let's see, Sony camera 2. And let's see what we have for Camlink 4K. Oh, there it is. So it's just misbehaving, that's all. And okay, well. But the odd part is that why is my camera where it is? Okay, now I'm just playing like I'm stupid because I thought that the camera should be, oh, I have to set up this stupid thing. You silly guy. I forgot I have to add a filter. Chroma key. Yes. And green. There we go. Boy. Wow, OBS just really had some fun with me today, I guess. So thanks, everybody. That's all good. Yeah, that's really good. So I already have another one too as well with the thing. Let's see if it works as well. Twitch scene shows no camera either. That's awesome. Let's delete that one and let's go add again another one. Yeah, I don't know why OBS did that to me today. That's really odd. Normally it does not do that to me today, or ever, but I guess it decided to do that today. So we will be down here, just hanging out. Nice. All right, and let's see, PoleGab's right there, which we do not have a PoleGab. So we'll have to, let me add a window, and yeah, I think everything is just making me crazy. So let's add a window here because we want to be able to do some demos here. Thanks for your patience. This is great. It's not supposed to be this hard, really. All right, here we go. We're going to add us a little window capture. Jump box 3. All right, now we've got to get that guy so he's below, because otherwise I won't be able to see me. Perfect. There was no questions in PoleGab, so we won't be doing that. That was something I wrote yesterday. So, all right. I know the darn electrons are just getting away from themselves. It's terrible. Well, I'm glad I was able to fix it, because it was driving me crazy that it was doing some weird things. So the idea is that we will look in PoleGab one more time to see if there's anything in there. We'll just pull it up here. And there is one. Wow, that's sweet. So let's do this. So there is a question there. Let me get it on the screen. PoleGab. Let's display it so we can see it. So this is the fun I learned from Brent. If I do PoleGab ahead of it, there we go. We see the question. It's really kind of cool. So the question is, I know you'll be talking more about DBA tools and how it's used for DBA tasks. What kind of use cases can you describe using DBA tools for performance tuning? The reality is that for performance tuning, there isn't a whole lot of things that DBA tools offers in that realm, mostly because DBA tools is more of a management utility. So if you look at DBA tools here, dbatools.io, and look at the commands really categories, you're looking at things that you can do to a database, not necessarily, you can get some things, but get indexes isn't one of them. let's look for your performance, and there is no performance. So unfortunately, DBA Tools is really meant to manage a database server. That's not to say that you couldn't use it to get some information. I will share something that I have done with my own self here. Let's just open up Azure Data Studio and do a new PowerShell window, a PowerShell file, because there are things that you can do with PowerShell itself, and I'll show you. This is an example. It isn't, like I said, necessarily related to DBA Tools per se, but since you brought up perf tuning, there are some things you can do in PowerShell that are kind of handy if you really work hard, and that is if I go into let's see, we'll just search for it. I created a script called table indexes, and it's one of those things where out of necessity, I decided I had to have some way to get information about stuff and display it. So it's easy to think about DBA Tools in a realm of having the ability to do things to SQL. But let me just make sure I'm getting the right one. It looks like I got the wrong one. There we go. So here's an example of something that isn't DBA Tools inside DBA Tools yet. But notice there's a piece where you can do, this is a script that we can run, and we'll run it to show you. But basically it has a SQL Server, SQL DB, table name, schema, indexes, table, space, and stats. And these are just switches. Hey, what do you want? And there's a switch for all. So I'm just going to show you all. Let me save this out as a script in my demos folder. Demos, and then we're just going to call it table indexes. Table indexes.ps1. And basically the principle is, if I say demos, you'll see that there is a table indexes. If I do table indexes.ps1, it does have some parameters in it. And the SQL Server we're going to use is right here. And the database we're going to use, oh, that's not it. Where's my... Let's do the other one. Prod SQL 1, SQL 01. In here, there's a database called Wide World Importers. All right, so we're going to go after Wide World Importers, and we're going to go pick a table to just illustrate this. Wide World Importers, tables, and we're going to pick one to show you what's there, and just make sure that there's some indexes or yeah, there's indexes there. So sales.invoices. All right, so we're going to go in here. We're going to SQL Server is prod-SQL1, SQL 01, and our SQL DB is Wide World Importers. And my table name is invoices. Schema is going to be sales. And I'm just going to say all. Okay, and it's not going to behave. Import get module. I should have SMO already loaded. I do not. Sorry about that. DBA Tools. This one needs SMO. I don't load it in the function because I expect it to already be there, so we'll run it again once DBA Tools loads. Okay, here we go. And basically what it's going to do is connect to SQL Server. It's going to go get some stuff, so I'll show you what this does. It's some long input, but here's what I use for this sake. So it has my data space, it has my index space, and my mistake is that I didn't put MB, but it's megabytes. This many rows, this many columns, and it is a clustered table. So that's great. It tells me about my table. But then it shows me the schema of it. So it shows me the table name or the column name, the type, the nulls, the is identity in the primary key. So if I have more than one, you can know it's in the primary key. And then the length. Anything that's in varchar max is going to be -1. So immediately I can see that I have some n varchars and they're maxes. Then I say, here's my definition length. So my definition length is my n varchar count columns, which is 9, that have n varchar as their type. The n varchar defined is going to be 8050. Now what I do is I add up these. So this n varchar is going to be 8,000 bytes because it's 4,000 times 2. And then this is going to be 40. These count as 16. So because they're pointers, they could be pointers inside the row. So I just added them up as 16. So we have 8,050 bytes in the n varchar, and the whole definition size is 8118. So now I know that it would barely fit on the page if I just got the n varchars. The 8118 would be bigger than 8060, so it may not fit on the page, which is fine. Here's my indexes. So in my index columns here in brackets, it tells me if it's unique, is it clustered, the ID of the index has compressed columns. But then it comes down and says, what indexes do I have that have user seeks, user scans, lookups, user updates, last update, index ID? So this, if I were to use some of these indexes more, these would show up. If they don't show up here, it means they aren't used at all. They don't even have statistics on these IO. This is in sysdm DB index usage stats, and that's where it tells me seeks and scans. But the basic principle is that I get the ability to have this on a database. If I had a production database, I'd show you, and it would show all these indexes with all these stats. So as soon as I see user seeks, user scans of 0 on that, I know it's probably not a used index. But then it comes in and shows me how big the indexes are for total pages and total space megabytes. Again, index IDs. Now notice I have row overflow data and lob data in this PK. So that means that it's potentially possible that because this PK is clustered and it's the whole table, that I could have some lob data and some row overflow data if those n varchars were filled up. Otherwise, I have in-row data for all these others, and they're really small. Okay, so the table's not huge. This one's 89 meg, because I did say meg here. So not too interesting. And then indexes with included columns. So I only showed you the keys here just because I want you to see the keys. And then in here, I show you if there's any included, and look at that. There we go. This index does have an included column, confirmed received by. Every other one does not have any includes. They're just the columns in the list here. So this is as close as I got to spending the time to get me something I could use for perf tuning. So unfortunately, until we get some authors of these tools, of DBA tools and stuff, we may not see the likelihood of having perf tuning things inside the idea. So thank you for the question. It was a great question. There's not much that we do in that realm. All right, so installing the SP Blitz package on like 30 servers at a time is awesome with DBA tools, for example. Yes, and that's where you get to install things. So install -DBA who is active, install -DBA first responder kit, all sorts of things. Eric Darling Data, I believe, has one in there. There's Watch, SQL Watch. There's all sorts of things that we can add using DBA tools, which again, when we look at the DBA tools things here, utilities, or I think it might be community tools that has most of the things in here. And you're talking install DB Darling Data, first responder kit, maintenance solution, which is OLA's, multi-tool, which I have not done anything with, SQL Watch, who is active, diagnostic query for invoke. So there's plenty of things in there to get some things. Diagnostic queries might help you. That one will actually let you run some of Glenn Berry's diagnostic queries that do have things like index usage stats that tell you that they're reads bigger than writes, or writes bigger than reads, or whatever. So you could use this. This is the only one I know of that you could do for getting this. This is a new diagnostic ADS notebook that will create you a new notebook that is based on Glenn Berry's scripts. and then you can just open that notebook. So if we were to do that, let's go back to our thing here. New dash DBA diagnostic ADS notebook, and we're going to say SQL instance, and we're going to do prod one dash SQL 1 SQL 01. And then my path. So I can do C:demos. And so what that will do, okay. Oh, it's going to just assume. So never mind. It's a parameter set that I can only specify one, the instance or the version. And because it's not valid for target version value, that's awesome. We're going to take away the SQL 01. And we're going to do target version instead. So there's some anomalies that you have to deal with. Yeah, that's really odd. So it wants you to give a full path ADS notebook. This is where sometimes PYNB. This is sometimes, oh man. It's not a valid value for, yeah, so I don't know why this does this. Because it is a valid value. We'll just do it again. ADS notebook. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's being such a pill. But it certainly is. Let's open that notebook. Open file. We're going to open this notebook. Yes. And why did I miss a new file name? New notebook. It's called what? Notebook 1, save as. I probably missed, oops, I didn't mean that. I probably missed a character or a letter on the thing. So save file as, and it wants to be IPNYB. My bad. So let's go rename that file. C bin, nope, demos. And this one should be an IPNYB. There we go. Now we'll open that file. Open file IPNYB. And it should open it up in the notebook interface, which it's a big notebook, so don't worry if it doesn't go really fast. It has to load, so it takes some time. It is not a PowerShell notebook, it's a SQL notebook, but notice it has the version info, the core counts, all the server property. I mean, all of this is here for your taking. So this could be a way to get some information, or you could invoke the diagnostic query. So there's also an option for invoke DBADuck query. And the unfortunate side is that it's not really all that intuitive as far as like, hey, I know what the names of these are. So what you end up doing is you end up doing a SQL instance, prod-SQL 1, SQL 01, and then you end up with a database, and we'll just do wide world importers. And then there's a helper. So I don't know what the query name. I don't know all the query names, and I don't think that they did a way to do that. So what you end up doing is use selection helper. And use selection helper will pop up a little box. Come on, pop up a little box. Failure. The certificate change. Oh, come on. Okay, well, that's a problem. But anyway, you should be able to just do invoke DBA diagnostic query. I'm going to try it outside of this ADS because I'm going to. New window. This guy, import module, DBA tools. And now we're going to just invoke. What it's supposed to do, yeah, so there's something wrong here. I'll have to fix that. The certificate chain, I'm not sure what that is. But basically what it would do is it would pop up a little selection helper in grid view and let you select your queries. So you'd select. And then once you selected those queries, you could actually hit OK, and it would pass those queries through, execute the queries that you chose by name, and then it will output the stuff. So if you wanted to catch them in a variable, instead of just invoke, you'd do variable equals that and save them in a variable, and then you can export them. Now you can invoke or export like we saw here. There's an export DBA diagnostic query as well that you can specify where you're going to export to. And there's a lot of features in here. So if you wanted to use this to do performance troubleshooting, you could certainly do that. And it's in DBA Tools. So you can use Glenn Berry's stuff inside DBA Tools. And that's the only ones that I know of that you could use on an invoke. An invoke here will do a DBA who is active in a diagnostic query and then a new DBA diagnostic ADS workbook or notebook. Outside of that, you would then you get these two invokes. Otherwise, you'd have to invoke-DBA query and do SP blitz or SP blitz lock or something and get it back in a result where you want to do something. I'm not sure why you do that, but you could certainly do that. Do you have any thoughts on Manning Publications, DBA Tools in a month of lunches, or PowerShell in a month of lunches? I'm about a quarter way through the DBA Tools one, and it's been great so far. Yeah, so I will tell you that my go-to, so they have a series, right? So if we go to Amazon and we just look at month of lunches, PowerShell. I didn't do the other way around because I wanted the month of lunches to be. So there's Learn PowerShell in a month of lunches. Now this is the newest edition. This is the older edition. So November 2017. This is 22. This one is updated to include Linux stuff. So if you want Linux and running PowerShell there, that's a great one. James Petty and Travis Plunk and at all of the other ones like Don Jones and wow, his name just left me. Jeff Hicks have done this new update. The other one, this is the original one. This is the second edition here. This is the original one in 2016. So the reality is that I know that this one was very, very beginning of time, which is 2022. So 2012. So you think about that as 10 years ago. Then they updated it in 2016, then 2017, then 2022. This is the fourth edition. So the Learn PowerShell in a month of lunches is a great beginning. If you've never done PowerShell or don't know a lot about things, I went through it the other night because I'm gathering ideas for other things. And I noticed there was a lot of chapters on things that are just fundamental, pipeline and really key things on variables and things like that. So I think that the Month of Lunches series is really good. So I began with this one, and then there was another one that was Learn DBA Tools. Yeah, there's the DBA Tools one, but there was another one. It might not be considered a Month of Lunches. So let's do PowerShell Don Jones. And Don Jones has Learn PowerShell Scripting in a Month of Lunches. I love that book as well. And then there's one last one that's called Tool Making. And I don't know if it's, Learn PowerShell Tool. That's not the graphic for it. Let's put it that way. This is PowerShell in depth. That's really funny. They have the wrong graphic on the tool making. But the tool making book is a really good, there we go. Let's do this one. No, that's not it. So they're lying. So this page really sucks. Amazon needs to clean up their act. But Learn PowerShell Tool Making, Scripting, and Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. They're my three beginning books to go through one by one by one. The scripting one is really, really good, and the tool making is really, really good because they bounce off of the Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches and also give you the ability to understand how you take PowerShell, put it into a script, maybe even a module. And then they talk about making tools. What tools? If you're going to make a tool, what does that mean? It should do one thing. It should be called. I mean, so the combination of all of them are a great set. That's my go-to set. I actually have an online subscription that I read them from, but for purposes, I bought the books. I bought the physical books so I could just one day just thumb through them. And then the DBA Tools one came out. I'm going through the DBA Tools again as well. Doing the auto-updated version, live book, yep. And that's great. The live version, I did the DBA Tools live version as well, so I could get me a copy when it got done. And I actually did some reading before they released it, and I still have a pending review I got to do. But the team that did it is way cool. Chrissy and DBA with a beard and Rob Sewell. Those guys are great. Claudio Silva. Next question. So, do you have any preferred ways to automatically run PS1 files? Since I've used SSIS or Windows Task Scheduler depending on the scenario, but wondering if there's a better way. So those are the ways. I haven't ever used SSIS to execute one. You could, because it's just an execute process task. So you could spawn PowerShell out of SSIS and then run the script. I've never had a reason to do it in SSIS, but certainly the idea of having it in any place you can execute. So Windows Task Scheduler, great. Any other scheduler, there's tons of other schedulers like Jams or other big ones today that you could schedule it in. Anything that can run a process on Windows works great. Even cron jobs in Linux can run PowerShell with DBA tools. You just can't do WMI. So if you're going to run against Windows servers, then then you can. But basically, you're right. The other way that I run tons and tons of PowerShell scripts, probably the one that I run the most out of is SQL Agent, because I'm a DBA and I do DBA tasks with them, or I manage my infrastructure with PowerShell, and so I'll run them out of Agent. Today, minus 2019. So today, you would typically create a command exec job, put a CMD file that says PowerShell in your PowerShell script, and then point to your PowerShell script and let it run as a CMD job. Today in 2019 and 2022, they have allowed you to put a pound no SQL PS in the PowerShell step, so you can use native PowerShell stuff. Which is great. When you do NoSQL PS, you actually get PowerShell.exe, and I've done demos to test it, and it's actually really literally the host PowerShell, and so I do that myself. I typically, if I have set PowerShell stuff, I will throw that in there, and do the things that will make sense for that piece. But most often, Agent is my go-to guy, and then Task Scheduler is my second go-to. Just in case I need to run it on a box, not on a SQL server. Or if I don't have SQL Server like SQL Express, I wouldn't have that to my credit, where I could use a agent on that piece. So unfortunately for SQL, hopefully they will fix the whole agent thingy job, that we can just do everything we need to do. Great questions though. Yeah, I mean so SQL Dev DBA in the chat, basically SSIS uses mainly as a coordinator, and that's totally true. That's one reason why people would use SSIS to spawn processes like that, is to use it as a orchestrator. I mean, SSIS is a great orchestrator. I just think it's a sledgehammer for a finishing nail. But that's me, right? I mean, there's other ways to do it, but certainly that works for orchestrating your things and having them in line, and if you do this, don't do that, so you don't have to execute the PowerShell if you change your structure. So it does work. PowerShell, I'm not saying PowerShell doesn't run in SSIS. I think it's great. I've known many people who do. I just don't have a whole lot of reason to use SSIS for a daily work. Maybe if I'm doing ETLs and I want to spawn something to do something, then absolutely that's a great place to run it. But I'm not I'm just not versed in, or I'm just not one that uses SSIS as an orchestrator for purposes of orchestration, but totally doable. I think it's a great thing that people are creative, and SSIS is an engine that supports exactly what SQL Dev DBA says. So definitely an option to execute a PowerShell script if that's your sole desire. So at this point, I think we're out of time. I think because I started late because of my fun little camera issue, which I wish it wouldn't do. I will have to figure out how we get it to not do that. But nonetheless, it'll be okay. We'll figure it out and it'll all be okay. But thank you all for coming to this meeting for fun. And also just want to remind you about the Ask Me Anything tomorrow. To make sure that you have options of talking to me tomorrow about things that are on your mind. Please use PollGab. I'm starting some social media posts and stuff for people to get familiar with how to interact with me, just like they do Brent. PollGab's a fun little tool, and now I'm getting the hang of it. It's learning, and that's okay because I love to learn. And this has been a new venture for me because it is not SQL. It's PowerShell, and it's Twitch, and it's OBS, and it's all these things that are like, wow. But hopefully you like my transition. It was a new transition I have. But please join me tomorrow, and thank you for all the fishes. Have a great day, and enjoy your